Hey, this is MC117.
And I'm ProjektZero.
We are Ironic Commando, and we are back by popular demand to say mean things about your music.
It's been a good minute. So what have you been doing in the break, 117?
Not a lot. Really just kind of retreated into my cave and caressed my ring of power. I got something in my throat for a while. It was rough. But we're going to be doing 8 tracks for this video, and we're hoping to be doing 8 tracks each month. This could be new music, old music, videos, anything. Kind of whatever bubbles up through the community. And if you would like your music reviewed, or if you would like someone else's music insulted and want to send it to us, the most important thing is to get us a downloadable track. You can send either of us a PM or hit us up on our Facebook page, Ironic Commando Nerdcore Reviews. That's where you can find us and get us a download link, because PZ cannot stream so easy. He's listening at work and in his car, so he needs the download link or it is not going to happen. So requesting that. But let's talk about what we're going to be looking for in the music. Zero, you're all about the production.
That is correct. And just to kind of focus in on that, I usually look into sort of the composition. I look at the mixing, your EQ, all kind of the nitty gritty and how you put the track together. What sounds you're using, that's kind of my domain. 117, you're the vocals guy.
Yep, I'm going to be looking at kind of the creativity, the artistry, the delivery, all the different vocal components, the rhyme schemes, the song structure. Since hip-hop is what we're going to be mostly looking at, is functionally a medium in which the voice is the lead instrument. I think that it's a lot more than just talking. That sounds so lame. Yeah, so I'm gonna be focusing on that. That's my thing. Now, just so you know a bit of our credentials, ProjektZero is a graduate of the Berklee College of Music with a degree in audio engineering. He's got 20 years under his belt working with artists such as Drake, Mos Def, and weren't you? I thought you were working with Eric B. Of
Yes.
Eric B. and Rakim.
Correct.
And I wrote every song for David Bowie. Most people don't know that. So,
Little known trivia.
Yeah. I feel pretty good about that. That was some good stuff. I feel good about it. A lot of the things that I do, you feel kind of like, I don't know if it was good, but that, I stand by it. It was good. It was solid.
It's always good to have that confidence under your belt.
Yep. Jumping right in. Let's talk about our first track.
Looks like Artist Anthem is what I've got here by Lex with some production by Cloth and Pop.
Why don't you talk about this one first? Because as I understand, this was kind of a favorite of yours.
Absolutely. So to me, this one mostly just blew everything else out of the water. And that's Cloth and Pop, clean production every time. And I wanted to dive just a little bit deeper on this one because it's pretty much just cheating to say, well, the song is clean and well produced. I wanted to kind of focus in on a few of the stylistic elements in this track.
Can we talk about the stylistic element where the beginning was basically Footloose by Kenny Loggins?
I also noticed a bit of Ben Folds in some of the piano there.
I'm working so hard, I'm punching in my card.
But so my thing was I wanted to see how well Lex was able to stick with a lot of these elements, right? So we started out with the piano, moved into a little bit of chiptunes as the first verse kind of progressed, and then as the first chorus kind of hit, there was pretty much a full rock ensemble. You had your drum kit coming in, tight, clean drums. You had the lead guitar, rhythm guitar, and a bass guitar with it. And what I wanted to see was whether Lex kind of maintained her identity or sort of held her own, and she did. And for those of you who kind of listened in as we did the VPC reviews, one of the main things about Lex, I think that we stuck with a lot was just that she was so emotive and expressive in her vocal delivery.
She has a very identifiable sound.
Absolutely. And
which is super strong. You want to have a brand as a musician.
Sure. And I wanted to say that I think she did that in pretty much every element of this. Now, one of the main things that sort of caught my attention too, we had a bridge or sort of a breakdown moment starting at about 2.5 minutes into the song, which definitely felt a little bit overdrawn out to me.
Was that the stripped down part?
Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't sure if it felt like it needed to exist or that it carried. Like, I know there was sort of a heaviness to the subject matter on this that was really betrayed. I guess it didn't jive with sort of the happy upbeat of the instrumental, and I was totally okay with that, but the breakdown felt like the song was kind of wearing its heart on its sleeve just a little too thinly.
I actually liked that part.
Really?
I specifically wrote that I liked the lo-fi stripped down bit.
Okay.
You know, to me it was a good change up. The song wanted to change up, and I thought it executed strongly in that role. I think you could have done something else with it instead of that, but I don't know necessarily what it would be. I thought that it was very serviceable, and I enjoyed it. Like, my ear was happy listening to it, and I was like, okay, now the Fountains of Wayne dynamic shift is coming up. Wait for it, wait for it. Okay, there it is.
So can I kind of riff off of that, because that leads into my major criticism of the song, and especially with some of Cloth and Pop's production on this, because you run the risk, I think, especially with pop music, of being or sounding kind of heartless and empty and formulaic and mechanical. And I feel like towards the end, this track kind of did that for me. Kind of that heartless pop music kind of thing where everything just felt a little bit hollow once you kind of give it a few more listens. This would be an extremely radio-friendly song, and I mean, I was singing it, I quoted it on Facebook, I had a blast with this track. I just, it's a very radio-friendly single, but there are certain times or elements in this production that make me feel like it's just a little too overcompressed, too clean, where it just doesn't have that kind of, a little bit of that grit that I think it needed. And that's not a dig at Lex, I think it's more on Cloth and Pop's side with the production value.
Okay, that's interesting. See, like, I interacted with this track, I would say pretty similarly. I don't feel it's Lex's strongest track. I thought it was good. It reminded me a lot of things. I wrote Kenny Loggins meets Billy Joel. I like heavy subject matter juxtaposed with like a really light poppy track. You know, I think it works for me. It works if you do it right, and I thought this one did it right. The intro, I feel like the very beginning was a little bit weak lyrically, but it got stronger as we went on. Can we talk about strongest chorus of the month? I thought the chorus of the song crushed.
Absolutely.
So structurally speaking, this is actually kind of a 3-part song within each distinct segment. So you have a rapped bit, and you have a sung bit, and then you have the chorus. And I think that's smart, because the sung bit works as kind of a pre-chorus, but you can still change the lyrics to it, so you want to hum along. I really liked the singing bit. Just put together very intelligently, well executed. For better or for worse, there's always going to be an audience for songs in which girls rap about stuff in the bedroom. This is just a thing. I felt like that was maybe sort of a Mick Foley level cheap pop. But again, you know your audience. So yeah, I would say this one worked for me. I scored the tracks just to kind of keep them straight in my head, and this one had my highest score of the month.
Sure.
It sounds like that was the case for you as well.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear Lex and Klopp working together. I'd like to hear them do more stuff. I suspect if they were to actually do a VPC together, they'd be a strong contender for a winner. I don't know who would really beat that. So, assuming they didn't, kill each other, that would probably be a really good collaboration. Let's move on. Let's talk about Night Xing.
Oh, let's see here. Sorry, can you give me the track name?
Yeah.
Is that?
So this track is Buster Sword.
Okay, I see. I'm listening to him a bit out of order then.
Okay, so Night Xing doing Buster Sword. This one, so here's just a personal thing. This song is called Buster Sword, which is a reference to Final Fantasy VII. The beat for this song is from a Final Fantasy, but it's not from 7.
Yep, I caught that.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out why this song was called Buster Sword.
Can I give you my theory?
Yeah, tell me.
Which carries into my review.
I really want to know.
So I'm gonna read a little bit here. I said this. You can tell that the entire instrumental was mixed separately without the vocalist because of the way that the drums sit in the mix. Now, I'd be willing to bet a couple bucks on this. What it feels to me like is Richie Branson had a beat, passed it off to Knight here, and was like, hey, why don't you rap on this, right? And Knight pretty much just rapped on it and maybe did a little bit of mixing on his end and finished it out. And that's kind of, the vocals do not feel like they were written with, the beat doesn't feel like it was made with these vocals in mind, I guess is the better way of saying it.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
So I think Knight just kind of called it Buster Sword. You know what I mean? Like, it just highlights to me how disconcerted this track really is. Take a track about Final Fantasy VI, vocalist takes it and calls it Buster Sword, and then just puts it out on SoundCloud. It's kind of...
I didn't catch references to Final Fantasy VI or 7 in this song.
Yeah, no, that's super fair.
So I liked the beat. Of course, Richie's always on point. I wrote, it's basically a pretty standard brag rap. It's not exactly a brag rap. It's more like, what'd you say, autobiographical rap.
Sure.
Right? Which is a broad category. It's people saying, here's all the stuff. The constant doubles usually annoy me, but I actually thought they were done pretty well in this. I didn't find them distracting. Solid flow, got my head bobbing. But then when you actually start listening to the song, it's like a phone book. And this guy, and this guy, and this group, and this group.
Yeah.
2 shout-outs to Mega Ran in the same track.
Sure.
I did notice the shout to Wreck the System. But it's just a lot of name dropping, and here's some shows that I did. And it's like, that's fine, but you have to give me a reason to care.
Yeah.
Like, imagine this is the first song I've ever heard from you. And this is something that I wrote for each track was, if this is the only track I ever heard from this musician, based on just the strength of this song, would I listen to more?
And that's something that I want to underscore too, because especially in this case, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was either the producer or the vocalist of each of these, pieces of music kind of submitting these as something they specifically wanted reviewed. So, Knight in this case would have known that this might be our first exposure, and still passed this anyway.
Like we said, every track that we've reviewed is one that somebody personally contacted us saying, here's the download link, or it was available on Bandcamp for, pay what you want. But yeah, this is one where it's like, hey, please listen to this track and give me a review. And I wouldn't say that it was bad at all. It was just sort of forgettable. So what I wrote was, like, I don't know if it was already on, like if this album was on, I wouldn't turn it off.
Sure.
But I don't know if I was going through my music, if I'd say, oh yeah, I want to listen to this.
Yeah, I actually completely agree, and that's another note that I'd written was, it feels so thrown together to me that I didn't see myself coming back to listen to it outside of the confines of doing a review.
No, I liked the beat, actually. The beat was probably my favorite part of the song.
Yep.
I have a real soft spot for Final Fantasy beats. And Richie Branson did a great job. So if I listen to this again, it's like, yeah, I got to hear that Richie Branson beat again. But there's such a broad tapestry that you can engage in, either with 6 or 7. Like, even if you're going to call it Buster Sword and, like, okay, make it about, like, paralleling your life and Cloud's.
Sure.
Or just something to where I can, like, dig in a little more.
Yep.
Give me something that I can latch onto.
Yeah, and it's funny to me because the only piece vocally that actually stands out in my mind as we're talking about it is the reference to Bomb Man or his Bomb Man track that he did with Mega Ran. Sorry, that's like kind of the only piece that really stands out to me. As
I'll tell you what stands out to me, the very ending where he goes slash.
All right.
That was not cool.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate that it's sort of like a risk take. It's like, not everyone's going to yell slash at the end of a track. So let's try it and see what happens. But it didn't work for me.
Yeah, my thing is, right, and I'm gonna dive a little bit deeper on why I think this was thrown together, just from the instrumental side.
Yeah.
When you put a track together, usually the two elements that you need to stand out the most in your mix are the vocals and the drums, right?
Right. Yeah.
Especially in hip hop, you need that snare drum, or you need a drum beat. It's kind of one of the defining elements.
Yeah.
So the
whole point of hip hop is talking over a rhythm, so the rhythm is pretty important.
Right, and so if you take a pre-mixed instrumental and apply any kind of compression over it, the way that compression works is that it multiplicatively kind of turns down things based on their decibel volume. And so if your drums are way up, they're what's going to be cut down the most. And you can really kind of feel that going on in this track. Like it feels like there was some kind of mixing done after, I'm going to say, Knight had recorded his vocals, threw them on the instrumental that was given to him by Richie. He applied a compressor to the master track, I'm assuming, and it kind of just muddied everything down. Yeah, the drums in particular just feel like way tuned down. Everything kind of does to me.
I will say, that said, Night Xing, I think he has good delivery. Like, I think the way that he says things is engaging.
Sure.
And so I think that's a strength, and that's why I said, based on this, I would be willing to listen to more.
Yeah.
But I felt like there was some opportunity was left on the table here.
I completely agree, but I'm very curious to see his growth and development, because it sounds to me, especially from the track, that he's pretty early on in his career.
I don't know about where he is on that. This track was released this last January, so it is pretty recent. And I saw he was going to be on something else too, some other compilation coming out. Got it. I noticed his name. So, I will say, no, I'm not going to make fun of a guy's handle. My name is stupid, so I have no ground to stand on there. But let's talk about songs that are hard to engage with. Let's talk about Adam Selene doing hashtag cat poster Hulk smash.
Okay.
So this came out last September. So it's been, 6 months?
All right.
First thing I want to say is Adam sent us basically his whole, Top 8 Rap Space album.
Sure.
Did not say a specific track that we should review, and so I picked this one based solely on the strength of its name.
All right.
Because I liked it the most. Adam, whatever he is always interesting. So what I wrote, did you see Mary and the Witch's Flower?
I did not.
Okay, I saw it. It was pretty good. It was by some guys who used to work for Studio Ghibli. And they came out with this movie, and this reminded me of that a little bit, like the contrast between this new studio and Studio Ghibli. Like, Miyazaki's films didn't always hit, but they always reached real far. And that's what I liked about them. This new movie that came out, it's like, it didn't try for much, and it executed strongly on that. So it's like, it's not bad, it's perfectly fine, it just doesn't try to be anything more than fine. I like Adam's music because whether or not it works, it tries.
Yeah.
That's what's engaging to me. And so, what I wrote about this was like, where would I play it? Are you going to play this song in the gym? No. In the car? No. Party? Like, where does this live in my life?
The only place that this really just felt to me like I was at listening to a local band on stage. Like, that was the only thing I could picture as I listened to this whole song.
Yeah. If this was played live, I think it would be cool.
Yeah.
But there's nowhere else where this can exist.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like, I wouldn't send this to someone saying, hey, you got to check out this guy Adam Selene. Here's hashtag cat poster Hulk smash.
Fair. But I mean, it's also, I think it's good to have those kind of like just live killing shows.
But that's the thing, like, I did like this song. I thought it was good. It was so hard to engage with and like incorporate.
No, I agree with that, but especially too, I want to point out from what I can gather from Adam, it looks like he's been focusing more on the live elements of his professional side. That's something he's been moving in the direction of. So I definitely don't want to knock him too far with that being the theme or sort of the crux of the song being a live song.
And in terms of my metric, based on this song, I would listen to more, from Adam Selene. If I had never heard anything else and I just heard this, it's just so weird that I would have to.
Sure.
I wrote that the outro of this song is a good example of effective muttering. Like, that's done really well.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of unhinged, and I like it.
Yeah.
It's abrasive, but it feels like it's on purpose. It reminded me of Jesse Dangerously, actually, doing Welcome to Night Vale.
I really agree with that sentiment, too.
Yeah. I would love to hear these two guys get together and do a thing. Maybe they have, and I'm just ignorant. But that would be cool. But I did like it. This had probably my highest skill level score of any song this round. And it was overall, I think it was my second highest score.
So for my end of it, I loved how just kind of absolutely like brutal and messy and very almost punk rock, but very live, right? That the underlying track to this is. And simultaneously, like the exact flip side of this coin, the vocals in this were so clean on top. Like, it's hard to do a very punk rock or live sounding track and not have those vocals be just completely buried in like the ass end of the mix. And, Adam, like, really pulled that off, and props to that, because that is difficult to do. The thing to me about these kind of tracks, or particularly the verses where it's like pretty much just a drum beat going on, is that they really require the vocalist to kind of carry the track without being boring or predictable. And for the most part, Adam executed on that incredibly well. I did kind of think that, whether or not this track needed to be 3.5 minutes, I wasn't so sure. But, like, the vocals were amazingly well done. There was a lot of sort of emotion and energy put into this mix, and it was
so much energy.
Oh,
That's what I liked about it. I like listening to something that it sounds like the person who created it cared about it.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just trying to be too cool for school and have some kind of laid back, just done smoking vibe, like, I don't know, I just don't care.
Yeah.
Put some energy in. Like, as a thank you to me for listening.
And, I guess, sort of one of my things is, this track didn't really go anywhere. Like, if that makes sense, right? Like, it had an energy level for the verse, it had an energy level for the chorus. It was pretty much a fun ride, but that was kind of it.
I have no idea what this song was about.
Oh yeah, no, me neither. But it was a blast. So I mean, that was kind of where I was at. I kind of wish there was a bit more of a shake-up towards the end. Like, all I really caught was the organ that got added in towards the end, and that just wasn't really enough to do it for me. But this was a pretty fun track, and that was kind of all that I took away from it at the end of it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And now, I think this was the very last track on his album. So how do you feel about this track as an album closer?
Without having heard the rest of that album, that's pretty difficult for me to say. I mean, if the other 7 tracks on the album were higher energy...
I'm just going to say, this is the taste you're going to leave in people's mouth.
Yeah.
It's like, thanks for listening to my album. Here is hashtag Hulk Smash Cat poster.
I really just want to imagine a world where this is like the down-tempo piano track at the end.
And everyone's holding up lighters.
We're just like screaming off the wall for the rest of it.
Oh man. Oh, that'd be so good. Alright. Talk to the kind folks watching about The Monkey King by Touch.
Okay. So, one thing I have to say, and I know we've had submissions or we've done reviews before by producers who are very old school hip hop, just sample driven kind of the whole way through, right? And I have to say, because in spite of having a lot of respect for hip hop production values and sort of the history behind hip hop, it is very hard nowadays to impress with these kind of old school sample driven tracks. You can create some truly awesome vibes, right? But a lot of the ones that I hear today from producers who go for this vibe just kind of find a groove, stick with it, it never goes anywhere, it just kind of stays in that one mode for like 3 minutes, and if you've got a good MC on it, fantastic. Like, you can ride that for a solid 3 minutes. have like an introspective track, and then that's it, right? But this track, like, in spite of the fact that the vocalist on it was very, very clean, rhyme scheme was adhered to very well. I didn't have any sort of detractions to say against the vocalist, but everything on this track, stale, unemotional, kind of formulaic, like it hit its groove, and it stuck with it for like 3 minutes, and then that was it. And I didn't remotely care about the subject matter for that 3 minutes, like, and the thing to me, right, is this was supposed to be a concept album, right, about Sun Wukong, like, very... I feel like it was going for a very storytelling-driven mode. You're supposed to care or be engaged by the subject material for that to be pulled off, and here I am just kind of like nodding my head and zoning out for like 3 minutes, and then when the track was done, I was just kind of okay. I mean, everything was clean, felt alright, it just felt very repetitive and formulaic to me at the same time. So I wasn't terribly impressed by this track, in spite of it being clean, well produced.
I wrote that after 30 seconds I hated the beat.
Yeah, well, that was me too.
It was so repetitive. So, as a little background, this one came out November 10th last year. This guy's on Quinlan's Hand Solo Records.
Which is a great label.
Great label. Yeah, I love a lot of the stuff on there. Shout out to, what was the G.I. Joe track? The concept album?
That Word Burglar?
Yeah. That was so good. That was probably my favorite album of that whole year. Let's talk about strong concept albums, which is why I bring that up. Like, that one was fire from front to back. Every track was 100% committed to that concept and exploring it within this world. What was it, Snake Island?
I think so, yeah.
Welcome to Snake Island. Yeah, I loved that album. It was so good. This track was the track I was most looking forward to listening to in this review. I love Journey to the West.
I have to respond to that. I'm usually very hesitant to come near a concept album. So
no, I love Journey to the West. Yeah. I think
it's
awesome. It's a tremendous story. Sun Wukong is a great character. I've seen a few different film versions. This was disappointing for me. So there's the beat, which is not like it's not even that it's bad. It's just like you said, it doesn't go anywhere. It's like, here's the beat, and then I'm just gonna loop it 500 times.
Yeah.
And it just, your brain gets tired. I wrote, great concept for an album, flows decent, felt a little wobbly, like it wasn't quite in the pocket. It wasn't bad. The faster section I thought was stronger than the slow section. But the beat also seemed to be right in the same range as his voice. And so I had a really hard time picking out what he was actually saying. It sounded like just a pretty standard brag rap. It's like, where's Sun Wukong? Like, there's a few references, talking about being trapped under a mountain for 500 years. Sure, but like, there's a ton to this character.
Yeah.
This is where I'm at right now. It's Girl Scout season, my friend.
About to pour me a nice small little glass here of some Talisker single malt. Feels like what I need to kind of get through the...
I'm so glad. I was really concerned for a minute you were going to drink that straight from the bottle.
That would be horrifying, but we just won't go down that road.
But in terms of the beat, like, I have tinnitus. I think a lot of musicians do. But that's where there's a tone playing in your head at all times. And if you think about it, you can hear it. But most of the time, your brain just tunes it out. That's what happened by the end of this song. The beat was so repetitive that I just started tuning it out. It was hard for me to actually pay attention to what was going on with the song.
Yeah.
Journey to the West is such a rich tapestry to explore, and maybe the rest of the album does that, but I felt like so much was left on the table with this one, in terms of what you could have done, where you could have gone with it, like really diving into the Monkey King. It didn't feel like a concept album track. It felt like this track could have been anywhere.
Sure.
I will say, album art on this one, super hot. Super hot. Love the album art. So I'll say that. And this is a track that I might put on at a party. You know, I can absolutely hear this in the background. Everyone's, you know, eating chips and having fun.
Sure.
Based on the strength of it, would I listen to more? Like, I would start another one, but if the beat was as abrasive as this one, I would stop it.
Yeah. And like, there's something to be said too for the strength of the concept here. Like, mixing, you know, Sun Wukong into like some very old school hip hop vibes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential in that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I love the idea. I love the idea more than I like the track.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I might take a listen to one more off of this, and if it was good, I'd probably listen to the rest. Because the whole album, you know, is theoretically, I expect it's the story of Journey to the West, but now I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like all of these, like I want to like them. you know.
Sure.
So I'm not mad, just disappointed. Hashtag parents.
There we go.
Parents just don't understand. It is time. It is time, ProjektZero, for MC117's Business Minute. Okay, so let's talk about business. Now, a lot of people do this as a hobby. If you want to do it as a hobby, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I did it as a hobby. You can do it as a hobby. But if you want to do it as a business, or move towards doing music as a business, you have to understand business. And the first and foremost thing I would say is the difference between a business and a hobby is that a business has customers. So you need to be thinking in terms of who are my customers and why do they want what I am creating? How are they reacting? How are they interacting with it? And the concept that I would like to share today is called Net Promoter Score, which is a business sort of metric that's become very popular lately called NPS. And the way it works is like this. So there's lots of arguments about what the best advertising is, but the most trusted form of advertising is a personal recommendation. If somebody says to you, you have to listen to this. So some business people got together and they figured out how do you actually identify the people who are going to be your multipliers. And they do it with this NPS. So you know how scores for a lot of things are inflated, except mine. I get bad scores to everything. But so the way it works is you ask somebody on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend whatever it is? Like think about it in this case, how likely are you to recommend this person's music to someone else? If the score is anywhere from 1 to 6, even though 6 is above average, you know, mathematically speaking, that person is a negative. So they're more likely to hurt you than help you.
Yeah.
If sharing your stuff. They're going to talk about how they don't like it. 7 and 8 is seen as neutral. So even if someone says 8 out of 10, business-wise, that's a neutral person. They're not for you or against you. 9 and 10 are your promoters. So the way that you calculate your net promoter score is you take everybody, the percentage of your total fan base that would answer from 1 to 6, and you add the percentage of your fan base that's 9 and 10. So like if 20% of people don't like you and 30% of people love you and everybody else is in the middle, you take negative 20 and you add 30, so your net promoter score is 10. Minus 20 plus 30. So you have an NPS of 10, which in terms of actually the business world is not bad. But by understanding the numbers and kind of digging into that, you can learn to understand your customer base better. There's absolutely nothing wrong with producing what your customer wants. That's how businesses succeed.
Sure.
So, like in music, I think there's a big taboo against selling out. I do not feel that way. You should absolutely sell out. You should just know why you're selling out and who you're selling out to and be comfortable with that. But this is your business minute, learning about net promoter score and how you can actually maybe try to track who are going to be your biggest champions and multipliers.
It's an interesting concept. I'd be curious too to look at ways of sort of implementing that metric as an artist. It feels like there wouldn't be many tools to effectively sort of survey your audience without being intrusive or obnoxious.
Well, I think you could post on Facebook saying, hey everyone, here's my new track. Once you've had a listen, answer this quick one-question survey.
Sure.
You know, I don't see a lot of people doing that, but I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a pretty geeky way to do it. This is Nerdcore, though, so you don't have to feel bad about that. So let's get back to the music. Let's talk about, and I'm gonna really need your help on this one. Let's talk about Detox by Angry Crow.
Okay. Well, I knew you had so much to speak about on this one.
Yeah, you're gonna have to give me a lot of time at the end.
I wanted to say though, there is some very cool stuff happening here. A lot of the ambient noises I think were mixed a little higher up than they needed to be. I wanted to dive in because you don't see a lot of instrumental-only tracks, especially in the nerdcore scene. Like, it feels almost very underrepresented, but again, it's a very vocal-driven genre to begin with. So.
What does it mean to be an instrumental nerdcore song?
Yeah, right. And sort of what was the goal of this? Is that was what I came into this with the mindset of. As soon as I realized there weren't going to be any vocals on this, I found myself asking, is this meant to be a filler song on an album? Is this meant to be sort of a vibe song? Does it set something up?
That's what I wrote too. It's like I didn't understand the artist's intention.
Sure. And so I tried to listen to it for what it was with a very kind of fresh mind, right? So what we have going on here, there's a lot of ambience, there's also a lot of dissonance, sort of in two of the instrumental tracks. You're going to notice they're very dissonant against each other. However, after about just a minute, right, and there was some cool stuff going on for a minute of this, but then it pretty much just becomes kind of this jazzy synth solo, very improvised feeling, right? And then there's a lot of like glitch drum machine elements going on kind of throughout the track. But for me, the only place where I felt this track would have really worked was in kind of a lounge or a bar, right? And the way that I wanted to picture it was where this track was done on like a drum machine, right? Like where it was entirely just improvised or just kind of off the cuff live, or you could like watch them set it up and build sort of the loops and the grooves that were in this track. I would have been moderately impressed, right? But the track itself didn't do much for me besides kind of create this cool but still dissonant vibe. And it's very hard to get me to crave coming back to tracks with a lot of this dissonance. And I had to kind of wrestle with this. I will throw out an analog. There are tracks like I believe it's Flight of the Navigator off of Childish Gambino's older album, Because the Internet. Older by which I mean pretty much the one before his most recent now. I've seen a lot of that sort of dissonant or ambient elements kind of mixed in very successfully into tracks like that with hip-hop vibes. This could have been up there, but it wasn't interesting enough to me to justify the length of the track, sort of what it was going for, and sort of the dissonance. I just didn't feel like it led anywhere. There was no payoff to putting in the time to listen to the song for me.
So one of the criticisms I've heard of The Last Jedi, written by Brian Johnson, is that the fans were left to come up with a lot of the explanations for why things weren't dumb. It was like, no, this made sense because of this thing that we've deduced or invented.
Sure.
So this song to me kind of just, like you said, it existed in limbo. And so I tried to just engage with it for what it was. So like, let me pitch something to you.
Mm-hmm.
Let us imagine introducing Niels Part 2.
Sure.
And this is a track in the middle, and in the story arc, Niels has just like gotten high, like Bender in that episode where he's jacking on.
Sure.
And he's like stuck the socket in his head into an electric outlet, and he's freaked out on electricity. Like, this to me works as an instrumental intermission in a story like that. Because I did get a kind of psychedelic feel to it.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was like being on drugs or trying to get off drugs. Like, all I had to go on was this name. But it felt somewhat narrative to me. Like, there could be a narrative built around it. Can I also throw out Adam Selene maybe rapping on this track? Because I think he's maybe the only one who could do it.
Well,
that'd be all right.
I'd be curious to hear it.
It sounded like jazz made for really serious jazz people. Like there's jazz that everyone's allowed to enjoy, and then there's jazz for just jazz people.
Yeah, I'm pretty. Jazz is a very interesting direction for me. I had a coworker of mine who was a jazz guitarist, and him and I used to go back and forth. I got a lot of exposure to the genre, and in terms of some of the stuff that I've heard in jazz, especially some of the more avant-garde kind of things, I would call this more on the mellow side for what I've heard from a lot of the jazz genre.
So I looked it up. This song was actually first released on the 2017 Nerdcore Halloween compilation.
Huh. Just like this? No vocals?
As far as I know, it was just like this.
Man.
So I find that really interesting. I did give it another listen, even though there's no lyrics. But it's just, it's so out there. I didn't give it a score at all. I didn't feel like I could. It's just, I didn't feel like it was necessarily bad. I just didn't feel like I had the tools to appraise whether or not it was good or bad.
I agree.
Personally, it wasn't my jam.
I'm like, there are contexts where this would be a perfectly enjoyable track. I mean, really, like lounge bar, sitting with a beer, kind of like watching some dude kind of play this out on a drum machine would actually be pretty legit, I think. But even still, like, it wouldn't be amazing even in that context. You know what I mean? Like, it almost feels like it was born to be kind of background noise, dissonant even still.
I thought it was interesting. I'll say that.
Sure.
But speaking of brains, let's talk about Meros.
All right.
So this song, he gave us a few, and I picked this one because I also released a track called Brains, and I had to know if his was better than mine. You may recall my song called Brains was actually a parody of the Beastie Boys doing Girls. And the point of it was, I released this once upon a time when Nerdcore did a debate competition, the Nerdcore rap debate, and my track was arguing the cons of keeping zombies as pets. His track is not about that.
Nope.
His track, I would actually compare his track in terms of subject matter as like the other side of the coin to Artist Anthem. Where it's like, this is a song about a guy overcoming his own brain. Whereas that's a song about laughing, ha ha, my brain's so broken.
Sure.
So I actually liked this track. I thought the intro was good. I thought the drums totally didn't go with the beat.
Yeah.
But I thought the rapping was good. The rapping got better through the song. So it started kind of simplistic, but it got better and better, I thought. I like a sampled hook. That's something that I respond to positively. So
Okay.
this one's good. The snare drum in this track was stabbing me in the brain.
Yep.
Yeah, it was very no. But I can see this going over well at a live show. The other nice thing about a sampled hook, gives you a chance to breathe between the verses. Very smart for a live track. Talking about what Plop and Pop doing, what is it, his Deal with the Devil track. He's going to be mad at me that I don't remember the name of it offhand. Soul Custody, that's it. But yeah, I laughed at the Pony Swag reference. I thought that was great. I loved when he started doing the different voices. That to me was the most dynamic part of the whole song, and I really had a positive reaction to it.
Sure.
When he started changing up his voice, my ear liked it, my brain liked it. The ending, last line, super strong. If I'm not holding myself back, well, who can? That was great. Thought it was just some good writing. Verse 2 and 3, there's one part where he rhymes torture with future. Could have worked harder on that one a little bit. But on the whole, I actually liked this one. I gave it, it was better than 3 out of 5, which for me is actually a stellar review. Anything that breaks 3 out of 5 for me. So, yeah, based on this track, yeah, I'd listen to others.
Sure. Now, I guess from my perspective on this, strictly sort of focusing on the production elements of this, I have to make some of the same nitpicks that we did for Monkey King from earlier. In that it's, again, this is a very sample-driven track, and I think you made several references to that in your discussion of this track as well. One thing that I particularly want to draw attention to is that I'm almost never a fan of chopped-up violins like there were in this track. You can just audibly hear...
Unless someone is sampling the sound of a violin literally being chopped up. because that would be cool.
Yeah, I think that actually could be cool. But in this case, if you're just taking like the pitch, that's sort of the melody of a violin, and chopping it, like it's so disjointed in this. And there are a lot of those where you can hear the samples weren't quite chopped correctly to where they don't loop cleanly. You'll hear little, I don't want to call it glitches because there's a lot of genuine glitch elements in this track, but artifacts is the word that I'm looking for, where there are just leftover little artifacts of bad chopping points. And so you'll hear those throughout the track, especially when it's over these sort of bassy and kind of boomy drums that there are. Let's see. Actually, sorry. I mean, it just a lot of the drums kind of clipped as well. There was a lot of disjointedness.
I wrote that I thought I would like this song better with a different beat. Like if the beat was completely scrapped and redone.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. It was difficult for me to enjoy a lot of this. Now, I did make a note that Maros wrote the beat incredibly well, rapped in an emotive voice that kept me engaged, and sort of made up for a lot of the weaknesses of the production. However, a lot of this, like, there was a lot of glitch elements, and I'm a huge fan of, like, glitch elements in electronic music. I love to see them sort of represented. I personally think that I abuse them in my own production. But in this track in particular, a lot of like the glitch elements that are going on in this just feel like they add nothing to the song. I feel like they're there to try and hide or make up for the poor chopping on the samples. So it felt to me like this track was just a little bit more disjointed than I wanted it to be. And I had to kind of rank it more on the low side in my own listening, just for those reasons.
Now, it will remain to be seen how much of our criticism is actually taken and incorporated by Mr. Maros, considering that this track actually came out 4 years ago.
Yeah.
This was released March 25th of 2014. So, this is the oldest by far of anything that we reviewed this month.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with that, but if any of it still applies, hopefully it's considered helpful.
Yeah. Well, also, hopefully, Maros has had time to expand his palette and sort of build up his skills over the last few years as well. I to be honest, I haven't heard much from him in the last, I think, 2 years or so.
Yeah, it was nice to actually see him pop back up on the radar. And on the off chance that somebody else, like someone's listening to reviews that aren't of their own song, like someone is listening to the reviews of someone else's song, maybe they could also think about those things too.
Sure.
It could happen. I've been told it could happen.
To review, all kinds of pieces of nerdcore music. I think we're pretty open to what's out there.
I'm just saying, no one ever collected on our phrase that pays from our nerdcore reviews.
Oh, that is sad.
Yeah. Alas. Moving right along, let's talk about Doc Isaac and Attract mode. Or rather,
I would love to hear your call
Attract mode.
On this.
So, this track also kind of stabbed me in the brain a bit. This is the lead track from his album of the same name. So this is like going to be your signature song. First thing I want to talk about, the incredibly adorable album cover.
Yep.
So cute. I love that art. So that was like the first thing that I wrote. This is another guy with a unique sounding voice.
Sure.
And it can be a double-edged sword. The more unique your voice is, the more I feel like you kind of have to play to your own strengths. So it kind of, I wasn't sure if I was on board at first. I thought it actually sounded better when it gets into like the sort of sing-songy part, rather than just like straight up rapping. That worked for me more. I was thinking more like Thomas Dolby. I wrote, the rhymes sound sort of like you'd expect from a commercial with someone rapping. The chorus on this one, I felt, had a lot of potential. So the chorus is in two parts. The first part ends, "What you gonna do? What you gonna do?" That's gold. People, it's nice. It's a great phrase you can latch on to. People like repetition. Sounded really good. But we're gonna end the chorus with "Go with the flow." It's Attract mode, and that kicks me off the tracks. It's not a good word delivery, especially to end a line, especially to end a chorus. This is what you're leaving with people with. You want it to be the strongest thing that you have. And the word is not pronounced like that. It's attract. The emphasis is on the second syllable. It's like a trochee thing. You can solve this if we're talking about chorus construction. You cut the word it's. So go with the flow attract mode. And then you're in the pocket of the way the word wants to be pronounced.
Sure.
But I liked it. I liked the song. I thought, like, the other thing that I wrote is, like, if you're going to do that, like, maybe you can even, like, double that up with some kind of, like, bit crush demonic vocal doubles. The song had a lot of potential, and I would listen to more based on it. The doubles in the rest of the song are a little messy, kind of distracting. But I liked the intro that has kind of like the classic uncool newscaster talks about video games. Like, that actually set it up well for me. I liked it. And again, I thought it got stronger the deeper into the song you go. But yeah, I did like it.
I will take the counter on that and just say that I don't think I did like it. And some of my reasoning here is that originally when I heard this track, the drums came on pretty solid, right? But I didn't like anything else about the palette of this track besides those drums. It felt like a very solid foundation, but then you have like these really boomy, bassy drums, and then you just had like these really high-pitched, and I'm going to use the word strained because I think that's the best descriptor I can give for the vocals on this one. There were these kind of strained and higher-pitched vocals complementing very bassy, boomy drums, and it kind of stuck out like a sore thumb to me, and I needed those vocals to carry a little more. There was plenty of energy. Like, I'm not detracting from the energy or sort of necessarily the feeling of the song. It just felt a little bit pitchy or squeaky or not really delivered, I think, the way that it needed to be.
Yeah, I'll give
Yeah.
you that.
Now, outside of those drums, there wasn't much else going on in the track, ignoring the vocals here. Minus what I'm calling just a few kind of sporadic, glitchy synth elements throughout the track. Now, I will point out as well, and this is more in the realm of the vocal side, what should have been the highlight of the track was in at about 3.5 minutes in, where he hit this kind of high note on the chorus for attract mode. The titular line of the song, which is the titular song on the album, and that little attempt where he tried to hit this kind of high note and sing on attract mode, it just kind of meandered and fizzled out. It didn't go anywhere, and then the track just kind of wound down. The instrumental also didn't do anything to sort of accentuate that line. It just kind of the track didn't feel like it built up as well as it needed to for me.
Okay. Different perspective. This is the album came out last December, most of the way through December. So I don't know how much other music Doc Isaac has. I don't know anything else from Doc Isaac. This is the first song I've ever heard of his, and so I felt like when I was listening to it, it was gonna be kind of feast or famine in terms of audience. I felt people were really respond to it, or they'd respond really negatively to it, and there wasn't gonna be a lot of room in the middle. And it was something to do with the character of his voice and the way that he was approaching it. It reminded me of, not in terms of the sound, but in terms of that reaction, I would say, why are names so hard? Names are hard, PZ. They're
Alcohol.
hard. Who did the song with Presidents of the United States of America on the hook, with Chris Ballou on the hook?
I have no idea.
Internet Famous. Who did Internet Famous?
Oh, that sounds more familiar.
Yeah. He's yelling at the screen right now if he's watching this. Yell louder,
yeah.
I can't hear you. Insane Ian.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm with you on that.
But yeah, that same kind of, either you're going to respond positively or negatively, and it's probably not, it's like the Net Promoter Score, you're not going to have a lot of people in the middle.
Yeah.
You're going to go one way or the other pretty hard.
Sure.
And it worked for me, but I'm not surprised if anybody else doesn't like it.
Now, what I want to say too is I'd like to see, I think there's a lot of room for growth and development here. Just in terms of developing more smoothness or finesse or sort of maturity in knowing how to use your voice on these tracks.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to say. You said it better. But it's like I said, a unique voice, and you want to play to your strengths, and you have to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And kind of drill into it.
I'm like, the energy is there, the production value, I think, is there. Like,
I agree on both counts. Love the energy, and like there's a lot going on. There's work put into the song. A lot of work was put into it. It was clear.
There's promise. I think it just needs to have better delivery. Is kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. As we say, it could have benefited from another take, maybe. But let's wrap this review vid up with one of my favorite artists, which is Vincent, the Earwig Linguist. My favorite Swede. I hope he's actually Swedish, because if he's not, now he's mad at me.
Well, or he's just grown accustomed to hearing you call him Swede.
So this song is VCVCBCC. Released, I think actually the same... Okay, I was wrong. I was looking at the wrong thing. So I want to clarify something. Doc Isaac's album was actually released October of last year, and it was Vincent's track that was released December.
Okay.
VCVCBCC, December 17th of last year. I want to hear what you have to say.
So I'm going to start by just drawing attention to something that I've been told you just shouldn't do, and the more that I kind of listen and grow, I agree with it. Don't write songs about writing songs. Like, it is the least engaging, most cheesy, like, I hate, writing songs about being a songwriter or sort of that kind of thing is annoying. And the thing, too, about this track is it wore very thin very quickly to me, right? Like, the chorus, if the chorus is just like verse, then a chorus, then a verse, then a chorus, like...
Didn't Nirvana write a song called Verse, Chorus, Verse?
Probably.
I'm sorry, please continue.
No, I'm with you, and I mean, like, I'm certainly not singling Vincent out as being, like, the only person who ever, has referenced songwriting in songs, for sure. Like, this is a huge cliche. And that's not to say necessarily that this track is, but I think it suffers for having those elements in it. And then for it to be sort of... I don't know. I like the groove. To kind of go back to my elements of this, right? It was a very solid groove for the instrumental of this track, right? I found myself kind of nodding my head. I was tapping my feet. I thought to myself, maybe the bass in this is a little bit too high. You could turn it down and have a much cleaner sounding mix. A little bit of mud sort of on that lower NDQ spectrum, right? But that groove didn't really change. If you listen to the drums, they don't really change much when you go from the verse to the chorus, which was kind of hilarious to me given the name and topic of the song. My thing is, there were the little samples that kind of came in the chorus, and they didn't really do much or didn't do enough for me as we got into the song. Really wore off their welcome by 2.5 minutes in. I was pretty done with this, and what killed me was the number of times I had to hear Vincent say verse then a chorus just throughout this song was almost enough to make me stop the track early.
Yeah, I unfortunately have to agree with you. And I said Vincent's one of my favorite musicians, and the reason is because, he's the king of the multis. His writing is just grammar candy. And the fact that he was writing in a second language, that just blows me away.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's better than mine, and it makes me so mad. I liked, there's a line, more superfluous words than a German thesaurus. Like, there's so many good bits in this. But in the end, they're embedded into a song that I wish they weren't in. I wish all the lines I liked from this were in a different song.
Sure.
That I wanted to go listen to more. And I wrote kind of a explanation of my issue with this. It's like, why does this sound so familiar? It turns out I basically just rewrote exactly the same thing that Stiborge wrote back in VPC4 when he reviewed another EL song, 808. And this song is basically that song again. It's the same song. So the problem with parodying something that annoys you is generally that there's only two outcomes. Either you succeed at conveying why it is annoying, and your song is therefore annoying, or you don't succeed at conveying why it's annoying, and you undermine your own argument. It's so hard to thread the needle between those two.
Sure.
So, like this one, the end goes on for way too long. The jangly sound in the beat was not pleasant to my ears. Some sizzling rhymes. But on the whole, I just didn't want to hear the track.
Yeah.
So that was a bummer. Vincent, I love you, and I want you to keep making music, and so I can keep listening to it. But yeah, this one didn't work for me. And on that bombshell, once again, I want to make a call out. If you would like us to dig into your song, and you're not afraid of honesty, make sure you hook us up with a download link, either Dropbox, whatever it has to be, so that we can download your music in any form. And we would love to feature you on the next episode of Ironic Commando Nerdcore Reviews. Parting words for our wonderful listeners, ProjektZero?
No, I just want to say that it's genuinely kind of a pleasure to review, and that I hope all these come across as sort of constructive or actually in some way an educational into what goes into these songs. I'd like to, in the future, start doing more kind of a deep dive or actually sort of go into the methods of production.
Yeah, definitely.
So I hope we can make this more educational.
For anybody watching this, tell us what you respond to and what you want to hear, because we'd love to dig into stuff. We want to produce content that people actually like to watch. So if there's something that you want us to cover as a subject or as a technical aspect, PZ can dig into as far as production aspects or writing, lyricism. There was some good stuff this round, and I say round, it's not the VPC this month, but yeah, we definitely want to make a review series that serves the community. So thank you to anybody who watched any part of this. Although if you don't watch this end part, you won't know that we thank you. Definitely appreciate it, and stay tuned. Next month, hopefully another video coming at you.
All right.
Good night, sir.
Guys.